Hey, Quad Bros, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Glad you guys are here. As you can see, this is not a gameplay video. This is going to be a little bit more of a design video. So buckle up, put your game designer hats on, and let's talk about some stuff. All right. So the Enlisted tech tree came out, and as you can see, I have reworked it. My biggest feedback in terms of the Enlisted tech tree was that it went to tier 10 as opposed to tier 6, which I think would be a lot better and would make each tier feel a lot more distinct, as well as making the grind, while not actually lessening it, make it feel a lot better, right? The overall time investment to the game is going to be the same, but the time investment to get to top tier is going to be lower, right? Which means that we're going to be getting our iconic weapons like the G41 or the G43 a lot faster. And I think that's an important thing in Enlisted. I think a lot of people are coming into Enlisted wanting to storm the beaches of Normandy using a Thompson, and when they get into the game and they see that the Thompson in Darkflow's tech tree isn't unlocked until tier 8 or whatever, they're going to be massively disappointed. On top of that, we have 6 tiers of bolt actions in Darkflow's system, and I massively disagree with that. I think that that's just going to make tier 1 through 6 feel incredibly boring and similar to one another, and I think it's going to be a lot better if we have this set of tiers. Okay, so that's what I'm going with here, and that's what I have done. Now, a couple important things. The Germans have an Italian tree whenever possible. So you can see down here, we've got some Italian rifles ending in the Armaguerra. This is going to bug the hell out of me. There we go. That's much nicer. They have this SMG line down here. They've got the Breda Mod 30 in kind of a unique position we'll talk about. They've got these Italian tanks down here. They've got some Italian planes, right? So just where the Italians kind of have their own stuff, I've done a little tree for them as well, which I think is a lot of fun. I think it's interesting, and it lets you get some really unique weapons in each of these tiers that can be otherwise pretty powerful, right? And that you might not otherwise get. So I like that a lot. Couple other things, right? I've split the aircraft into, you can see, a fighter line and a cast line. I think that's going to feel a lot better for players, and is just going to overall be a lot more interesting. I'd like to also reference the fact that like MP3008 and VG15, we're going to get to these, but just understand, guys, that while this isn't, I am trying to keep things as historically accurate as possible in terms of, time periods. This is supposed to be a little bit more early war, mid-war, late war in terms of these tiers. But that's just not always going to be possible. The VG15 simply isn't going to fit late game because you're just going to end up getting trashed on by people. Like, if I put the VG15 off of the STG, why would anyone ever use the VG15? Why would you research it? Why would you use it? It's just not worth using at that tier, right? So it's a lot better if we keep it here in this area down here. Although maybe, honestly, there's a world where you could theoretically move it up to tier like 5 or 6. It's kind of an interesting semi-auto. Anyway, sorry, I won't think about that right now. You could do something like that. But that's the idea here, guys. You just can't. They have to be here. It sucks, and it's not historically accurate. I realize that, but there's nothing we can do. We want to have a semblance of it, but in terms of gameplay, that's going to take precedence, at least for me. So let's dive into this. I'm not going to dive into every single, faction in the game. We'll probably talk about Germany the most, and then we'll briefly talk about the USA and show it off, and briefly with the Soviets. I don't want to go over every single tiny little detail because that'll take a really long time. I'd rather just have a little bit more of a concise video, and so that's what we're going to do. So talking about Germany, we've got tier 1, tier 2, pretty straightforward stuff here. Like I mentioned, we have the Italian line. We've got these nice little, kind of branches off here with some bolt actions that go down this way. You can follow this just straight German line down here, or you can branch off a little bit and get these alternate weapons like the grenade launchers that are going to help you out and give you some more options if you prefer going for the bolt actions over the semi-autos. Totally reasonable. Bolt actions are very powerful even at high tier. And then obviously if you go this way, you can get the tier 3 Armaguerra, which, just an alternate to the G41. Balance-wise, who knows? There's pros and cons of each, but generally speaking, I think that they are similarly leveled in similar power levels. Sniper tree is pretty straightforward, not really a whole lot to see there. SMGs, you start out with the MP28 going into the MP34 down through this Italian tree and then over this way, ending your Italian tree in the Beretta M38, which is a just monstrous SMG. I actually consider putting it in tier 5. It's so powerful, but we'll leave it here. And, you know, I think it's a cool investment if you spend all this time grinding out the Italian stuff. Then you get a, you know, weapon in tier 4, which is probably a little bit more powerful than a lot of the weapons in tier 4, which, again, I think is reasonable, right? You're investing a lot of time here. You're putting a lot of effort into this. I think maybe the FNAB should also be over here. I don't know. We'll kind of decide on that later. The balance isn't 100% perfect. The other important thing here, guys, is we have the Breda Mod 30 down here. Now, most factions, all factions really get an MG at tier 3, not tier 2. But with the Germans, again, if you're going to invest all this time into the Italian tree, right, you got to go here, 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 here. Then you can get it. You can get an LMG in tier 2. Which I think is pretty cool. The Breda is not really that good, but getting it in tier 2 before others have a, you know, machine gun, I think that's cool. And I think it also leans into Germany as a faction being very LMG focused, both historically and in Enlisted. So I think that that plays off really, really well. And then you can see a pretty straightforward MG line there. Heavy weapons, we've got our AT line at the top here. That's something that I differed from Darkflow. Just put all the anti-tank weapons here. And then we've got our heavier, you know, weapon teams down here with our flamethrowers at tier 4 and tier 6, which will be the same for all factions, as well as the mortars in tier 3. Tanks, starting off with the Panzer II, going down to the Italian line with the AB41 and ending in the Semovente. If they add more Italian tanks, I'm sure you could fit them in here. The Semovente and the Panzer 470 are both tank destroyers, which I've put lower in tier than other factions, or than other tanks in the game. The reason for this is because they have such poor anti-infantry capabilities that I think it's nice to have them a little bit lower tier. So if you don't like using tanks to fight infantry and, you know, you just want to use your tank as an anti-tank vehicle, right? Like an enemy spawned a tank and then you just want to take out their, like, you know, gray zone tank or whatever, then you can just grind out these, right? These tank destroyers and then just call it a day with those. Right, you just equip these, that's your tank for the game, and you don't have to worry about anything else. You're not trying to play in a Panzer 4H, you're not trying to use a Tiger 2 or whatever it is. You just want to use these tanks for what they are and let them punch upward. They're also really nice for if you're going into the top tier, but you're grinding out, like say you're grinding out the FG42 first, but then you want to have like a good tank that can battle against the higher tier tanks. Well, that's exactly what the Panzer 470 is going to be able to do for you, which again, I think that's nice. I think that's a good way to handle it, especially with the time investment that you're kind of putting into doing stuff like this, because it isn't as good. It's not generalist the way the other tanks are. Aircraft, again, we've got our cast line down here, and we've got our fighter line up here. Germans get the Stuka in tier 2, which is a little bit more powerful than other vehicles of similar tiers. So you can see where Germany kind of is unique and you know, powerful is they've got some early tier 2 stuff kind of simulating that early power they had in the war. And, you know, with the Breda and the Stuka, and then it's kind of also their, you know, iconic stuff with MGs and obviously the Stuka. You can see Japan here. I'll briefly hold if anybody wants to pause. You can see, again, it just maxes out at tier 4 because they don't have good tier 5 and tier 6 stuff. USA, we'll go a lot quicker through this, guys. This is you know, we've got our British line. We've got our, whatever this is called. We've got our British line. We've got our, yeah, British line. It's a British line. It's not called anything else. M1 carbines in tier 2. I think that's okay. Seems like it's, you know, similar power level than everything else. Snipers are super straightforward. Some machine guns. We've got the M3A1 grease gun coming off of the M3. We've also got our British line down here. And then we've got our Browning Auto 5, which branches off both the M3A1 and the Winchester. So you got to have both of these. You get the M3A1 and the Winchester, and then you get the Browning Auto 5. Unlocked at the same time as the Thompson, which is powerful, very powerful. But, you know, the MP40, I think a lot of people sleep on this gun. I think the MP40 is really, really good. So I don't think that that's actually unbalanced in any regard. And then we've got the M1 Thompson in tier 4, going up through eventually getting the Thompson drum mag. So again, you guys can see, you know, I'm trying to, I want these iconic weapons unlocked a lot earlier, but then get the better variants as we go down the line. Machine gun tree, pretty straightforward, pretty trash overall. The Americans were not exactly known for their firepower in terms, well, wrong way to say that. They weren't known for their machine gun firepower, okay, right? The bar was pretty widely hated. 30 cal is not a bad gun in any regard, but certainly no MG42. we can see again, we've got our AT line here. We've got our weapon teams. Tanks were pretty tough for the Americans. It was a little weird because I didn't, you can't put Shermans too early. You got the M2A4 branching down into the, an AA vehicle if you want to go that route. M5A1 Stuart, and then M3 branching off, and then a Scott. So we kind of have like, okay, we have like, an early Stuart, the mainline Stuart, and then we've got some like Stuart variants, right? That's kind of how I designed this. And then we've got this going along here into the Grant, Crusader. These might need to be switched. I don't really know. I don't think it matters that much. But maybe it can also be like, we have the Crusader and then the Grant is down here branching off of that. That might be a better way of handling that. I don't know. And then we've got the Sherman, and then we've got, Sherman 2 going down to a better Sherman line into the M4A2 and then the M10. And we don't have to necessarily do this. We might do like this, right? And then an arrow going this way and then down, right? That's not a bad idea either, right? You can see there's a lot of options. And then we've got our tank destroyers, the M10 and the M18, inevitably ending in the 76 Sherman. Aircraft, same thing. We've got down here, we've got our, our British line. We've got our whatchamacallit stuff here, our cast line, and we've got our fighter line. And that's really it, guys. The Soviets, the only thing I'm going to mention here is the KV-1 is down here. I don't know what the hell. The KV-1 was so hard to figure out where the hell to place it, guys, because it feels like it's one of the only vehicles that does feel like it needs another tier of its own. But nothing can fight a KV-1, right? Like, it's in the same tier as like Panzer IVs, like long barrel Panzer IVs, which can fight it, but it's a monster, right? The KV-1 is going to be a monster wherever you put it. If you put it high tier against Tigers, it's just going to get annihilated. If you put it low tier against, Panzer 3s and 4s, it's going to destroy them. So it's a mess no matter where you put it. Not a lot of things that you can do with that. So I decided to just try to lock it behind as much grind as possible to make it a big investment to get down here, right? So if you decide to go down this way, right, it's a big investment. Otherwise, yeah, that's kind of this is the Soviet tech tree. Soviets were actually pretty easy to do. I thought they would be a little bit harder, but they were pretty straightforward. Not a lot of guns, to be completely honest with you guys. One thing here, I guess you get the PPSH in tier 4, and then you branch it down into a drum mag. And one thing I like about how I did this was you get the box mag PPSH, but then you get the PPD 3438 drum mag, which is worse than the PPSH, right? The PPD variant is worse than the PPSH, but it's got more ammo as a trade-off, right? So you get a worse gun with more ammo or a better gun with less ammo, and then this branches into tier 6 PPSH 41 with the drum mag. So I think that's kind of a nice little trade-off there, the way that balances itself out. And then a Panzerfaust here. I didn't want to give him a Panzerfaust, but we kind of had to. I realized that they just can't fight. You can't fight a Tiger 2 with the PTRS. It's not going to do anything. And that's it, guys. That's all of it. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. We are going a little bit longer than I even wanted this video to be, and I've recorded it several times trying to bring the time down. So we're going to call it here. Leave a comment down below. What do you guys think about this tech tree? Do you guys think I did a good job? Do you guys think I did a terrible job? I would love to hear your guys' feedback, and I'm sure Darkflow, if they watch this video and they see this, maybe they'd like to hear your guys' thoughts if you agree with me or disagree with me. So make sure you guys get down in the comments, and while you're there, like and subscribe. It does help me out. I appreciate it so much, guys. And yeah, join our community Discord. The link's also down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Thanks for watching.